Good evening and welcome to Labor's Voice. Good evening and welcome to Labor's Voice. Tonight's segment is on the essential workers keeping us fed. And we are very excited to have leaders from the United Farm Workers, from the Teamsters, and from the United Food and Commercial Workers, in addition to the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, to talk about workers in the food industry and some of the challenges that are facing workers within this industry during the COVID-19 crisis. To start off this evening's performance, we are very fortunate to have a singer and songwriter who is from Highland Park, California, Irene Diaz. Irene was featured on the NPR's Tiny Desk concert series and Alt Latino, and she has performed throughout the country, and in addition is a frontline worker in the food industry. So please help me welcome Irene Diaz.
I bet all love could do anything, 'cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. We could move mountains, then we could part the seas, 'cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. Give me love, don't want hate, all these walls we could break, 'cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. I bet these chains could break off of me, then I'd break them off of you, and we would be free. 'Cause love has a trigger, igniting all the bones. I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. Give me love, don't want hate, all these walls we could break, 'cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. This world's crazy, but I'm more crazy for you. This world's crazy, but I'm more crazy for you. 'Cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. I would do anything, oh anything for you. I bet all love could do anything, 'cause I would do anything, oh anything, anything for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene Diaz. That was beautiful. And thank you for bringing your energy and spirit to this gathering tonight on Labor's Voice, essential workers keeping us fed. You know, the reality is that food chain workers are at the front lines in providing essential services to our communities, from farm workers, supermarket workers, meat packing workers, warehouse workers, drivers, and delivery workers. And unfortunately, while they are on the front lines keeping our communities fed, many corporations refuse to provide healthy and safe work environments and refuse to pay their workers a living wage with benefits. And so the purpose of Labor's Voice is to really celebrate the extraordinary work of unions and worker organizations that are on the front lines defending the rights of workers and also defending a secure and healthy community for us all. And joining us tonight is the president of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, representing 800,000 union members in Los Angeles County, Ron Herrera. Ron has recently been appointed to two very significant posts. One is the California Governor's Task Force on Job Recovery, and the other is on the Los Angeles County Committee that is also looking at the current pandemic and the way forward. And so Ron not only is a critical labor leader here in Los Angeles, but he is also on the front lines of advancing policy change to represent the interests of workers and our community. So welcome, Ron Herrera. You need to get off mute. And then the first question to you is I wanted to ask specifically why the LA Federation of Labor is engaged in broader community issues that extend well beyond the workplace.
Thank you, Kent. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here, obviously, and very honored. But I want to start off by thanking all the essential workers in Los Angeles. They are definitely the heroes of what we do, and I would be remiss if I didn't start out saying thank you to them. I think it's important that labor, right, labor unions and their affiliates, their partners, project well in the community. We have to not only understand that the community is our partner, but that it's important that union members and unions per se, sometimes we, folks look at us and we're not really, that held up in a good light because we're in a union. But we want to project our kindness, our compassion, our commitment to a better society in general. And the only way that you can do that is do work for the broader worker and workers that aren't, only in a union. So one of the things that we've done, obviously, has been the food drives, a basic necessity. And we partnered up with our nonprofits at the Federation and Labor Community Services through the guidance and leadership of Brother Armando Olivas have done extraordinary things in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Ron. No, the food distribution program has been amazing in serving so many communities here in Los Angeles, and it is so inspiring watching the hundreds of union and community volunteers who come out and the thousands and thousands of families who have been served. Ron, one of the things that you talked about when you first became the president of the LA Fed was the importance of building multi-union alliances and to get unions to work effectively, especially those in the same industry. So why was that an important goal for you to set at the LA Fed?
Look, you have to bring people together. Labor has to have a multifaceted approach and attack. Communications is key, and it will always be key. We all have common interests, we all have common issues, but if we don't talk, right, we won't be able to band together against a common enemy. I think that currently the COVID-19 pandemic has caused workers and the community to align. The big thing that we're working on right now is workplace safety. You stated that I sit on two economic recovery boards, but as labor, we feel that workplace safety is the foundation and fundamental of a recovery, because it's not going to, the greatest strategy in the world to bring back the economy is based on workers. And if workers aren't safe, transmission and infection is going to continue. We have folks that are out of work right now and will be coming back into the workforce. So worker safety is very important. And we've formed coalitions around that. We have multifaceted approaches, multi-unions, SEIU, Ufcw, Teamsters, ASME, that are on the same page there. So the only way that we're going to get our message across is to speak our mind together and not to give in, because we have prioritized that as our number one issue. And, fighting together is very important. We're building collaboratives in the ports and entertainment at LAX, LAUSD. Obviously, I'm very proud to be here today with the grocery chain. I think, Kent, this is the first time that these folks have ever gone, these components, right, have gotten together. One of the things that we did at the Federation is we opened up our building pre-COVID-19 to negotiate contracts, utilize our building and the institutional power that it has to negotiate contracts, so that employers, the county, the city will know that they're just not fighting, a coalition, they're fighting the whole labor movement. So, our mantra is LA Union. LA is a union town, and we want to be an example that there's still unity within the labor movement. There's still solidarity. People have to know that, we're not going to fight them individually anymore in Los Angeles. We're going to fight them as a coalition. And our goal, right, is to put back the movement back into labor. And I think that labor has to be in the forefront of these conversations to get the respect that we deserve. And then we can continue that in our GOTV and our legislative politics that are so important.
That's great. I mean, it's really exciting to see the union solidarity coming together, coming to the forefront, and not just in words, but in action. And you see it in the way that unions are rallying together around a common set of demands and principles and objectives that really serve all working people. So it's very exciting to see that shift happening right here in Los Angeles. And the other issue that you touched on in terms of health and safety, and making sure that as the economy reopens, that each worker is treated with respect and dignity and is guaranteed a safe work environment is really critical as we move forward. And so we look forward to the role that you will be playing on these two economic recovery committees in the coming weeks and months. I know, Ron, that you yourself were a leader of a Teamster local here in Los Angeles for many, many years. And I was wondering if you could highlight your experiences as a union leader in understanding the importance of cross-union solidarity.
Leverage. I was a business agent back in 2000 for UPS. And there was a famous strike going on, and that was Justice for Janitors. And that was SEIU 1877 at the time. So at UPS, I was in charge of the downtown center. And obviously that was the UPS delivering, downtown LA. On my way to service the members, I heard on the radio that, then Brother Mike Garcia had just, taken the janitors out on strike. So UPS does what's called a pre-communications meeting every morning at PCM. And after that PCM, I barged into a crowd of about 100 Teamsters, UPS drivers. And I just reminded them, it was quick. I said, 396 Teamsters don't cross picket lines. That's all I said. And that day, deliveries were stopped, not only in downtown, but West LA and anywhere where 1877 had a picket line. One thing that was important to note is that next day air documents are very critical to offices. So the only thing I did was I forgot to tell my boss that I was going to do this at the time. So being a good Teamster, I called my co-worker, right, my brother Javier Bonales, who was in charge of the sanitation drivers, the waste drivers, commercial waste drivers. And I told him what I had done. So he immediately started calling all his shop stewards, in our waste division. So the two components of our local union stopped delivering UPS packages, and stopped picking up, waste in the buildings, and two vital necessities for, major office buildings. Thus, a great friendship, partnership, and respect was born with 1877 and my brother, Mike Garcia. And that loyalty still exists today with USWW and their leader, Brother David Huerta. So the Teamsters actually showcased their loyalty to their sister union by standing together and boycotting any entrance in the building into a building. One of our most famous ones in 2003 was our partnership with the Ufcw, where at a point from, I think it was October of 2003, if memory serves me right, to March of 2004, drivers wouldn't cross the Ufcw lines that were set up, and actually our grocery warehouses were taken out in solidarity to Ufcw. So that hasn't stopped. Just recently, a year and a half ago, county nurses were in contract bargaining with Brother Bob Schoonover, the president of Local 721, and he and his chief of staff, Sister Gilda Valdez, said all Teamster deliveries stop tomorrow unless we get a contract tonight. Thus, the nurses in the county of LA, got a contract. But solidarity within the unions, right, and creating leverage points in negotiations to get better contracts is something that I'm gonna key on with my history in the Teamsters and my ability to create communications between unions. And like I said earlier, not to be repetitious, but if we're gonna live by LA union and Los Angeles is a union town, then those are the kind of relationships, friendships, and brother and sisterhoods that you're gonna see here in the county.
Thanks so much, Ron, for joining us tonight. And it's so great that the history and work that you have done leading the Teamsters has shown the power of union solidarity in the concrete, and that you have brought that experience, that lesson, and that vision to the broader Los Angeles labor movement. I'm going to introduce now our next guest speaker, and I'm so thrilled that she could join us this evening. My beginnings with the labor movement was as a boycott organizer in high school and in college with the United Farmworkers of America. And it is my great honor and privilege to introduce the president of the United Farmworkers of America, Teresa Romero, who was the first woman ever to hold that position. So please join me in welcoming Teresa Romero. And the first question will be, if you could tell me what is going on in the fields of California in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you very much, Ken, for having me here today and for having farm workers' voice being heard. I also want to thank all essential workers for putting themselves at risk to ensure that we have food on our tables. We have always known that farm workers are essentials, and now the federal government has deemed them as essential, but unfortunately they're not being treated as such. Farm workers, for the most part, are not being informed of safety precautions. In the field, it's very difficult to distance yourself. Most of us here today can work remotely. Farm workers cannot harvest our fruits and vegetables remotely. They have to be in the fields. A lot of them are not being educated on what it is that they can do to keep themselves safe. And unfortunately, they're not being provided with the protection equipment that is needed. The UFW and our sister entity, the UFW Foundation, we have provided so far over 25,000 masks, and we're working on with the foundation, who through a private donor is going to be getting 800,000 masks that we're going to be able to distribute to workers in farm workers in, up to 200,000 workers. The challenges are big. Farm workers Many states outside of California don't have any protections. Thankfully, so we work with the governor here in California to make sure the farm workers here have sick pay leave. Can you imagine if they don't have that and they have to work? It is not only affecting the farm worker and their families, but it's affecting their communities and our food supply.
Well, thank you so much, Teres, for the work that you're doing in the fields of California. The other thing that I didn't mention in terms of your introduction is that not only are you the first woman president of the United Farm Workers, you're the first immigrant president of the United Farm Workers. And I know that the UFW has a long and proud tradition of fighting for immigrant rights. So could you tell me a little about what the UFW is doing now in this time of tremendous attacks on the rights of immigrants?
Absolutely. And it's something that unfortunately it's getting worse and worse under this administration. In December of last year, we were able to, we worked with Congress, US Congress, to pass a bill that would give legalization to farm workers, their families, and their spouses. It has the Congress with bipartisan support. Unfortunately, we are now in this pandemic, and we have not been able to move it through the Senate. But we are working, again, the US Congress has the HEROES Act, which includes protections for farm workers, not only in California, but throughout the United States. And we're asking that they have the same sick pay privileges that other workers have, and that they get hazard pay. We know how at risk they are, and we need to make sure that they have the protection so they can continue feeding America.
Thank you. You know, the United Farm Workers has not only been at the forefront of the American labor movement with regard to advancing the cause of immigrant rights, but the organizing, especially here in California, has really changed the culture of California with regard to respect for immigrants. And so, Governor Newsom, as an example, set up a $75 million fund specifically to provide support for undocumented immigrants in the state of California. And in many ways, that is building on the long tradition of the UFW fighting and organizing for immigrant workers. So could you talk about UFW's work in the political arena to make sure that policy changes are implemented?
You know, we do a lot of legislative work. Like I said, the immigration bill that was passed by Congress in December of 2019 was based on negotiations that the UFW had with the biggest growers associations to ensure that this bill would protect the workers, that would allow them to get not just temporary residency, but legal full residency and a path to citizenship. This is something that it took about a year of negotiations. And like I said, there's always a compromise. We don't get everything we want, but getting a bill for the first time in the US Congress with bipartisan support is the first time that ever happened. And we are hoping that we can move it forward because it is needed. These workers, immigrants, produce and give a lot to this country. And they deserve the ability to continue working without being threatened with deportation.
Well, let us hope with a new president and a new Senate come November 2020 that we can finally realize the dream of true immigration reform.
Amen to that.
I know that the UFW has been at the forefront of also advocating for nonviolence, within our society. And one example of nonviolence is the use of strikes, the use of the ability of workers withholding their labor. And I understand that the UFW is currently engaged in a strike now. Is that true?
That is correct. We had some workers that went on strike in the blueberry industry. There's been numerous violations. The company unilaterally decided to lower the rate that the workers were getting. And unfortunately, in many cases, workers are afraid because of their legal status and they don't want to do it. But many of these workers that work for this farm just were tired of the abuses and decided to walk on strike. And we're working with them because we need to ensure that this doesn't happen. And when they're brave enough to do it, even though they know that their legal status could be a problem, could be something that somebody can use against them, they're tired and they want to make sure that they get paid fairly.
Well, good luck on that strike and for the fight for the blueberry workers. And Teresa, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this program. The UFW has tremendous moral authority across the country, and we are so thrilled to have you as the new president of the United Farm Workers of America. So
thank you very much, Ken. Thank you.
The UFW is leading a strike involving blueberry workers. We have another union brother with us this evening from the International Brotherhood of the Teamsters, Local 630, the Secretary Treasurer, Lou Villalvaso, who was also on the strike lines early this morning. So Lou, what's going on with the Teamsters these days?
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Ken. And first of all, let me just thank everybody that's on the call. Much respect to everybody out there doing the great work, especially during these times. And first of all, I want to, our thoughts and prayers go out to every one of you that have lost members. I know ourselves within the Teamsters have lost many members due to this COVID-19, and some of them have lost family members. So first of all, I just want to give our thoughts and prayers to all of you and your membership. So the second thing is I really want to thank all the essential workers that are out there that are on the front lines trying to make sure that the food supply line is not interrupted. It's unfortunate that we do have employers, obviously with the direction of this administration where, they choose profits over the safety of workers. I think my brother Ron clearly stated that regarding any kind of recovery, a path to reopen this country is going to be really based on providing safety to these workers. But not to get off topic real quick, I just wanted to let you know that as you said, strike-wise, we've been on strike with about 150 members here in the LA produce market. Local 630 represents all the membership, all the workers there at the produce market, which is the central hub in Southern California. So all these corporations that obviously right now the restaurant supply industry is taking a hit due to the COVID-19 and restaurants being down, but they do have the curb pickup. And then obviously our grocery industry, which is, blown up over 200, 300% due to the demand that's out there. Well, these workers that we represent at the produce market are basically the frontline workers, like my sister Teresa Romero. Our brothers and sisters up in the farms are growing that product and picking that product, and it gets loaded up on trucks and it comes right downtown to the central market. And at this market is where everybody comes and picks up that product. Unfortunately, we've seen some issues where companies are not reporting COVID cases. They're not providing the PPE to these members. They're not doing temperature checks. They're not doing any of that. A lot of the times, what's happening is we're finding out secondhand from our members that you got positive cases. But we've been in negotiations with an employer off and on for the last several years. This one employer has been, violating labor laws, and we said enough is enough. So our members decided to take action, and this Memorial Weekend went out on strike at 2 in the afternoon. It's been going on 24 hours. We got about 8 gates that are going, that we're manning, and they're taking a hit. We're going to continue to put pressure to make sure that they understand that they got to treat our members with dignity and respect, and not only that, make sure that they provide their safety. That is our number one concern with our members. But obviously, during this COVID-19, it's a shame that you got corporations that, you've seen what happened with these stimulus packages that are going out. All these companies are applying for this PPP, but yet, they're not providing the necessary PPE or making sure that they take care of them. So there's big issues that not just the Teamsters, I'm pretty sure all of us on this call, through trying to make some type of legislation or policy change to make sure that there's some enforcement here. Yeah, we got a strike line going on. That's going to continue to go until we get a resolution there, and we'll keep going that way.
Well, thank you for your dedication and commitment. You've been on the strike lines since before the sun was up this morning, and you're still with us this evening and talking about the great work of the Teamsters in defending and protecting your workers. So, you know, I was really glad that you began by paying tribute to so many essential workers who have lost their lives in the midst of this crisis. But the reality, as you said, is that many of the corporations are not doing the right thing, and they're not providing the equipment. They're not imposing enough health and safety standards on the job. They're not providing enough resources and education to their workers to ensure that there is safe conditions on the job. So what is the Teamsters doing to try to challenge some of these conditions on the front lines?
So Ken, one of the things that obviously ourselves with the Teamsters, as I stated earlier, we're the middlemen between the farm to the markets. My brother John's going to speak a little bit on the market side, right, the grocery side, but our issue in the supply chain, as far as the distribution centers, we have over 20,000 members in Southern California that are affected within the food and grocery distribution network. And our brothers and sisters are the ones that are actually, obviously, they're definitely essential workers. They're all heroes, just like the rest of our members here. They're providing essential services. The issues we're seeing inside the warehouses, obviously, it's not at the impact like my brother from John from UCLA and the way that the clerks have seen it on the grocery side, but it's creeping up. It's coming from the markets now towards the actual distribution centers. And the problem we're having is they're not abiding with the 6 feet social distancing recommended by the CDC or the WHO, right? And the reason I say that is that the 6 feet distancing is very crucial when our warehousemen are selecting the product and building these pallets that go to the grocery stores. So when you got guys going up and down the aisles, there's no social distancing. They're trying to keep them under an engineering labor standard, right, to meet quotas under production. Mind you, plus a lot of our locals and the Teamsters had to provide masks to the members because the companies weren't providing the mask. So the same thing applies to our drivers as they're making the deliveries and going to the grocery stores and dropping off the product. So they weren't giving them the hand sanitizer, they weren't getting the gloves, they weren't getting the mask. And I get it, up front, there was an issue with supply and demand for the mask. And that's where we've had issues where I think, you know, at the national level, the government's failed to provide that type of equipment or PPE for not just our grocery industry and warehouse distribution and farmers, but throughout all Americans. So you're not going to get America back up and running when you're not providing the PPE. We've written letters to Kroger and all these major food suppliers and companies, telling them to put in some type of COVID-19 protocol, relax the attendance policies, obviously relax their labor standards. You can't keep guys on a standard when you're not meeting the 6 feet distancing. You got to give them the opportunity to wash their hands as needed to be able to make sure they're not going to be infect themselves or infect their family. So a lot of the issues that our members are having, they're scared. They're coming to work and then going back home. They're trying to provide for their families, but they're also providing a service to the community. And they understand it. Our members are proud. They're out there since this thing started, working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. The companies, obviously, you've seen what's happening. Their profits are through the roof. And at the end of the day, they have to take into account that, yeah, our members need, not just our members, all American workers need a hazard pay. If you're out there from the nurses to our police department, our fire department, but our clerks on the store side, our warehousemen, our farmers, everybody needs to get this. And I think that's legislation that needs to come at the top. But I think unless there's some type of enforcement mechanism coming from Congress, companies are going to continue to take advantage of this. And the problem is, once it gets into, as we're seeing already with the Smithfield plants throughout the country, right? Now it's here in our backyard in Southern California, okay? Now, once it gets into the distribution centers, that's going to be the problem, okay? Everybody's going to the markets, and that's the supply line. It's coming from my sister Teresa up from the farms through the distribution center into the markets with our brothers and sisters at UFCW. Okay, they're already having the spike, because I see the same emails going back and forth through Kroger and some of these companies where we share membership within the grocery stores at UFCW and the Teamsters in the distribution center. We're seeing the increased positive cases on the storefront, but at first it was low in the distribution centers. Now it's increasing, and that's also sad to see that now that the cases are increasing, the threat is higher. That's when Kroger decides to take away the hazard pay. So we did communicate and did several. We had several conversations between leadership within all the industry to make sure that we push back on the CEO, Rodney McMullen, letting them know that, this is not the time that you pull hazard pay from these folks. They're busting their butts. They're providing the service. You guys, I mean, the price on the product has gone up. So everything that you buy in the grocery store has gone up. And now you can't pay these workers, really? And to top it all off, there's still no testing. So the reason you're going to continue to see this is until Congress enacts and gets legislation in there for all warehousing and supply, all the way across, and all workers, especially on the food. The food supply line, unless there's going to see, it's going to get worse. And that's what we're afraid of.
Thank you so much, Lou. We really appreciate your presence here with us this evening. And many of the same themes that Teresa raised, Lou from the Teamsters is raising as well. The need for protective equipment, the need for hazard pay, and the failures of the federal government to provide testing, and the failure to hold corporations accountable for ensuring a healthy and safe work environment. We're now going to switch to the third union represented. We've gone from the farm workers to the warehouse workers, but now we're going to be focusing in on the supermarket workers and the meat packing workers represented by the United Food and Commercial Workers. And we have a very short clip that vividly talks about the crisis in the supermarket industry with regard to COVID-19 and the failure of the supermarket industry to provide a safe and healthy work environment. So please enjoy this short video on the supermarket industry.
We're here supporting the workers at Ralph's 100, also known as Rock and Roll Ralph's. 19 of our union members who work at this store have tested positive for COVID-19. That's the most of any store that we're aware of in all of California. We've got 19 cases in our store, and our store should shut down and make a thorough cleaning, sterilize everything, make sure we get this virus out of our store so that we could come back and work. I miss being at work. I love my job. I love my people. I love the people. I mean, I love my coworkers. We're a family.
The union is demanding that the company take 4 steps to ensure that not one more worker is infected. First, that the company shut down the store for 24 hours and then bring in a professional cleaning crew to ensure that there is no virus within the store. Secondly, to quarantine and test on site all employees of the store.
I mean, some people have called it an incredible mess, and I think that although that's not a scientific term, it certainly describes the danger here in this store. A little bit over 15%, or 1 in 7 workers here in the past month have been diagnosed with COVID-19. That is an incredibly high rate of infection.
Thirdly, to establish a functioning health and safety committee made up of workers from the store. And fourth, a review and approval by the responsible government entities, including Los Angeles County Department of Health, to ensure that all the promulgations, all the ordinances are being followed.
It's been very hard to know that I'm out of work and there's some of them are still in work. My heart goes out to them because I know that they can catch this virus and it's very scary. I would like for Ralph's to close the store down and thoroughly clean it out, sanitize it, and then give us all the stuff that we need, our gloves, our masks, and the stuff to be wiping down so that we're safe.
We think the workers know best how to protect themselves. They want the customers to wear masks. They want to be able to wash their hands. They want to ensure that there's not crowding in the store. So we're asking to get together a health and safety committee that includes the members so that we can ensure that the members' voices are heard when these safety rules are being enforced.
According to the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health statistics, Los Angeles County Ralph stores, over 1/4 of stores have employees who are infected with COVID-19.
My best friend who helped me get this job has now tested positive for COVID-19. She didn't have to be sick. She didn't have to be sick. If they would have given us what we needed and cleaned this store.
Every single worker needs to be tested. They should be tested right here in the store. That is standard occupational medicine practice.
For this union, and most importantly for its members, this is really what workplace democracy is about, where workers have an organized, articulated voice and is able to express that without the fear of retaliation. We went to the city, the county, as well as the state, and then we had a petition drive for the governor, and then the governor, in fact, topped it off with paid self-quarantine leave for all workers within the food chain, from agricultural workers to the food processing and grocery stores, which is unheard of.
Thanks so much. So with us tonight is the president of the United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 770, John Grant, and Calla Bell, who is one of the 770 member leaders within this union. So welcome to you both. And I wanted to start with John by telling me a little bit about this action and the challenges facing supermarket workers today.
So thank you, Ken, and it's really an honor to be with such great yourself and such great other labor leaders. All I can almost say is ditto to what they've said. They've articulated what the crisis is so well. So we've noticed, especially with Ralph's, but it's throughout all the chains, that consistently workers are getting infected. And this one store, as the epidemiologist that we retained to provide the scientific background for what the proposals we made, now it's over 25. It's close to 25 workers at his store. It's closer to 17, 18% of the workers were tested positive. And it's like, and then they were transferring, similar to what Ron was saying, they would then transfer workers out to other stores or bring them in because they were so short, and then transfer them back out. So they were setting their own vectors of infection throughout Southern California. So talking to the workers, we had a series of town halls, we had a series of surveys. We went to, as we explained, went to the governor, went to the county board of supervisors with the Fed and the Fed's muscle, and basically got in virtually every county within Southern California a checklist of what should be done. And we went back to the company and said, do this. And they said, no, everything's fine. So we held the action, pressing for shutting down the store, pressing for testing, pressure for a health and safety committee, and pressure for the county. And they wouldn't move. But the public reaction, the support that we got numerous, time and time again, the Fed, the Teamsters have been there. We even had Farmworkers, the rest that come down from in one of the actions. And it was that public pressure, the public knowledge, that forced the company to, in fact, now provide testing for every worker in that store. Now, that's not enough. It should be on a regular basis, and it should be through every goddamn grocery store, warehouse, and field where every essential food worker is, because that's how, one, you inform the workers what their health is, and two is you stop the spread. If you find these 3 workers over here, one of them has been infected, you give them the paid quarantine, the leave that we all fought for, and they get to stay away from work, and they don't infect anybody else. So that was, it took, they lied about it. They said that they had one of the PR persons say, we're going to do testing when they were confronted right after the demonstration. Then they told us to retract that statement because it was a lie when we celebrated the victory, that they refused to do the testing. And then 3 weeks later, they come back and do the testing because they realize they're in a bad position. The public wants their stores where they go to be safe. I mean, markets are the only place really that you can congregate legally within Los Angeles County. And it's a place where people go. And that's a place that should be healthy, that as a consumer, that it's going to be healthy.
That's amazing that UFCW was able to pull off this action and pressure the company to do the right thing. It is outrageous that in 2019, the Kroger CEO made $21.1 million, $21.1 million in 1 year, the CEO pay, and yet they just eliminated the $2 an hour hazard pay for supermarket workers. What is wrong with this picture? I wanted to bring in Caleb Bell to the conversation as well. Tell me from the perspective of the UFCW frontline workers, what is the condition like in the industry?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be in this meeting. Yes, my name is Caleb Bell. Is it okay if I also answer your question, but also share what I feel to say, if possible?
Please, go for it.
Thank you. Would you mind restating your question one more time, please?
Sure. I wanted to know, in terms of the UFCW workers on the front lines, what is the work environment like these days?
Well, I feel like I could only say this from a series of events which led up to today. So I've been working at Roofless for about a year and a half. And as I said on a previous call with other members before this, I was expressing how frightening. It's very frightening to not know what's going on and being pressed to produce the same amount of work, actually more work than your job is required, and also seeing fellow employees and team members doing more than their fair share of work and working longer hours in a unpredictable environment that we are still discovering today. It's sad because it does not have to be this way. I feel like in relating to, I see my employee members, for not only in my store, but other stores, and seeing cases appear, it rises emotion of that I'm not appreciated for my work, my family, and my friends and loved ones that are part of this community are not cared for, and they're expendable in a way. Actually, no, just expendable, actually. And so going to work every day and not knowing, you have a big question mark in your mind about what is the environment like, what is everybody doing, what is this, what is that, and seeing other people around you, other employees feeling the same way, it's not good for the mental mind. And I like what, excuse me, remembering Ron, I really appreciated what you said about the foundation. I feel like, I hope this answers your question, Kent. In relation to what Ron was saying earlier, he was saying how the foundation of is workers, and that's what's going to That's what's going to help recover the condition that we are in. And that's very spot on, actually, because I feel like from listening to all of you on this call, it is very refreshing to see the passion and dedication that you all have sacrificed in your lives for this present day and this present moment, where I don't feel forgotten or weird for having such concerns about my life and my family every day. And I'm sure other people that are risking their lives on the front lines feel the same way. I feel like all of you are teachers in this moment. I go to school, so that's why I relate it to teaching. I feel like all of you are teachers, and I feel like with these corporations, and it's hard to put names because the condition we're in, we can't really point fingers at a specific person, because it's just, I guess what I'm learning right now is life isn't working that way, where it's like it's kind of as a whole. And I feel like all of you are teachers in a way where by you standing up, by all of us standing up, speaking, making sure these requirements of safety is enacted upon, I feel like you're teaching corporations that actually all this money that you're making and all of this, what has built your dream is us. What has built your dream all these years is us, is workers.
That's right.
So the reason why it is so strong and strengthened today is because of frontline workers and everybody connected in this community.
That's
and
right.
I feel like how this is being handled, like the human body as an example, the finger is very important. The eyeball is very important. And frontline workers, distributions, farmers, no matter what you look like or where you are, your title, or where your upbringing is from, you're just as important as the whole human body. So when one is infected, guess what? It's all infected. And you can ignore it. You can put it away, put it in your pocket.
Yes.
Let me know if I'm extending over my time.
No, that's great, Caleb. We really wanted to thank you for joining us this evening because we appreciate the work you're doing. We appreciate the work of other union sisters and brothers at UFCW 770 who are providing such a critical need to our communities and to pointing out that it's through our solidarity and unity that we can demand the types of changes that we need. I wanted to just wrap up with John about the meatpacking industry as well. You were quoted on the front page of the Los Angeles Times yesterday, on Tuesday, about the situation at the Farmer John plant down in Vernon. So could you tell me what's going on down there, and that 153 workers have been infected with COVID-19. So what's going on?
So that's exactly right. And it's actually true all across the country. Meatpacking, which has historically been one of the toughest, hardest industries and the most dangerous. Some of us read The Jungle when we were younger, it's about the 100th anniversary of that. And at Farmer John, over 10% of the workers at that plant have been infected. And we came out over the last weekend and said the plant should be shut down unless they do mandatory testing, provide tracing and reveal who's been infected where and when, so we can in fact contact and isolate them. And thirdly, that they bring in Cal OSHA to have the health and safety experts examine and determine what's safe, what isn't safe. We put pressure, everybody here as well, especially want to thank Ron. I hadn't even finished the call when in fact I got the call of support from him. He must have been reading my mind or something on it. And sure enough, this is what labor means when you have an articulated voice, when we stand together, when we articulate it. So today, I'm happy to report OSHA came to the plant, welcomed by the company with the Los Angeles County Board of Health, as well as the city of Vernon. They flew out 3 of their top 7 executives from Virginia. We walked through the plant. They've agreed to provide the data of every employee that's been infected, where they're infected, and what the timeline is, as we've asked for. There's now voluntary testing. It's not what we wanted, but the investigation is now proceeded. And OSHA is like it was like a 6-hour inspection today. They're coming back for several more weeks. The LA County Board of Supervisors asked for it, and they're going to produce a report next week. So things are moving, and we're reporting this tomorrow night to our Packing House Council for guidance as to how much further we push. But we're cautiously optimistic. As everybody says, this is capitalism, and it doesn't necessarily move the way we want it to all the time. But it's one more action when you have an organized voice that in fact you can change or begin to change the conditions at your workplace, which is why this podcast, Facebook, this thing that you put together, Kent, is so valuable for all of us to learn these lessons over and over again.
Well, thank you so much, John Grant, for your leadership. And it's so powerful to see UFCW 770 on the front lines, in front of the Ralph supermarkets, in front of the Farmer John meatpacking plant, demanding change and demanding safety for our workers. And so for any of you who have watched this show, who are inspired, who want to take action, log on to the LA County Federation of Labor webpage, the United Farm Workers webpage, the Teamsters 630 webpage, the UFCW 770 webpage, and you will see that there are things that you can do right now to get involved, to get active, and to help create the change that we need. So thank you so much for our guests tonight, Ron Herrera, Teresa Romero, Lou Villalbazo, Kayla Bell, John Grant, and to the staff of the LA County Federation of Labor for putting this together. And we will wrap up with one more song from the beautiful and talented Irene Diaz. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have Irene Diaz close out the show.
This is called Crazy Love. I feel so honored to be here tonight and just to listen to all of you talk. Like, we are both frontline workers, and it's very emotional to hear all of this. So. See, I'll follow you through the bluest of days, and I'll comfort you every which way. So crazy in love, I'm so crazy in love, I can't get enough. No, I'll never get enough of you, my love. See, the days are so good and the nights are so sweet. Baby, you put me in the mood, you sweep me off my feet. There's days when you're sad, I want to lift you up, so I'll do all I can. Honey, you got all my love, my love. Ooh. Ooh. Crazy in love, of you, my love. See, I'll follow you through the bluest of days, and I'll come for you every which way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irene Diaz. That was wonderful. And we really are so pleased to have you join us tonight. Please join us again in 2 more weeks for Labor's Voice, where we will be bringing other extraordinary labor leaders who will be sharing their stories of fighting back in the era of COVID-19 and what labor can do to build a society with more freedom and democracy for all. Thank you so much.